10-year-old kid in the neighborhood.
We're gonna get lunch, John. Applesauce. And crushed pears. With government cheese. I remember my grandmother used to be in Lowell. She'd go anywhere, they used to give the cheese up, government cheese. She'd get pounds of it. Somebody took it. Is it the 21st? I'll have to check. I think it's open. What do you want, for the ad hoc? All right, yeah. 5, if it's there, I'll put it on. They're selling like pancakes. 21st, I gotta remember that.
Could they call and say they're not coming?
No.
Just don't show up.
Sometimes. No, they'll call. They'll call the mayor up. They'll text each other. Say, we're gonna be late or whatever. Then they can decide whether to start or not. What's May's last name? You know by any chance?
Whose last name?
Mabel. She's up in inspection services. I can get it later. She's never here.
Is she up there now or at the police station?
Huh?
Is she at the police station or upstairs?
No, upstairs. But the police station and the inspection, they work together, especially on these,
First one, Angel, second me.
Why wait? I just texted Mikey and I said, it's gonna be.
I'm good, yeah.
Hopefully I got through it, so. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Transportation Subcommittee here on May 7th. Roll call, please.
Counsel Dakota.
Here.
Counsel Janess. Here. Counsel New.
Here.
Three present.
All right. The motion that was brought forth by Councilor Robinson, which I'll read, is a request city manager have the proper department provide a detailed update on what is the city's policy on construction vehicles parked on public streets, what are the recommended adjustments needed, and what is being done to enforce any and all current policies. At this time, I'll have anybody from the public, if they'd like to speak on the matter.
I know Steve already had something he wanted. Okay.
Okay. Anybody else here? Is Councilor Robinson here?
He just stepped up.
You just step out.
He was here. All right. Councilor Mercy or Councilor Gitcher, do you have any remarks before Councilor Robinson comes back into the chambers? Yep,
Good afternoon, Chairman Dakota. I guess I'll start this conversation off. You know, as you're going through all of these neighborhoods and you're seeing the vans parked with the tall ladders on it in front of homes, in lines and lines of them, and you look in Centerville and stuff, and in downtown and all of our areas, one has to question what our parking policies are. How do we mitigate this so that residents still have a quality of life and can park? Because obviously more people are living in denser areas and with more older residents doing it. And that's where the question comes in, is when you put the workforce in. If you go to Reed Street in that area, the 3rd Street, 4th Street area, you'll see all of the roofing trucks with the ladders on it, taking up both sides of the street, and you can't see out of your home. And, you know, it makes it difficult for a quality of life over there. So I do think that we have to come up with some type of strategy to start giving people a quality of life in their neighborhoods. And I guess this conversation was to start that and see where, you know, to me, you just find more. Because what's happening is large businesses are giving their employees vehicles to take home. Well, those ended up in our neighborhoods with the person's vehicle that they use daily. So now you have 2 vehicles and it's just increasing, and it's overwhelming the neighborhoods with that. So I do think at some point we have to start restricting or giving bigger fines for the issues that are at hand and trying to give the quality of life back. I don't know how anyone else stands on this, but I do think as these big companies are sending home vehicles, they're paying less on their end for parking of these vehicles at company headquarters while we're taking it in the neighborhood. So I think that that's really what the question is.
Yep.
But again, I'll leave it to the board.
if my fellow colleagues don't mind me, I'd like to read into the record. This is a memo that was sent from then interim Superintendent Goldner to City Manager Golden back in November of 2022, with a motion from Councilor Robinson requesting the city manager have proper departments provide the current policy regarding commercial vehicles being parked on public streets. In addition, a report on what other practices for the enforcement. So it kind of seems quite similar, and obviously we'll wait for Councilor Robinson to come in the door, but Interim Superintendent Goldner's response was the Lowell Police Department enforces commercial vehicle parking on City of Lowell public ways. I contacted Terry Ryan, and the City of Lowell Parking Department does not usually issue tickets regarding commercial vehicle parking. Any Lowell police officer can issue a commercial vehicle parking ticket using a parking ticket book under Group G, Other Number 30, Commercial Vehicle. There is a $75 fine. The vehicle can be issued a ticket and towed, or red tagged for 72 hours, then towed. It is the officer's discretion, depending on the situation. Officer John Spinney, who is in attendance tonight, in the Traffic Bureau, is our commercial vehicle enforcement specialist and does handle enforcement when there are specific calls for service regarding commercial vehicle enforcement, but any Lowell police officer has the same enforcement obligation if they observe a violation or respond for a call for service. The ordinance identifies commercial vehicles as those over 12,000 pounds, having 3 or more axles and over 24 feet in length. This does exclude recreation vehicles allowed to park to conduct delivery or service. So I'm not sure what Councilor Robertson is looking for above and beyond, but Councilor Getchia, go right ahead.
I think as you read and you saw, I think the definition of a commercial vehicle is what we have to tighten up.
Yeah.
I think that's the major issue. It's not about any of the other stuff in there, but when you're looking at 3 axles or more, I don't think that should be the definition. And I thought we had come to the conclusion anything over 10,000 pounds at one point. I thought that was what the council came to. I think that may be something that was adjusted at one point, but I'm not 100% sure that, Mr. Chairman, but the definition of what a commercial vehicle is what the question is, in what heights they can go to and things like that. So that defines it very broadly, but when you're looking at the height of the vehicle, when you're looking at a van with ladders on top, you're talking over 10, 12 feet high. And there's issues with obstructions of people walking across crosswalks. There's all kinds of obstructions that are going on. You can't see across streets. You can't, because there's no windows or anything in these things. So I think when we started looking at it, we were more so looking at the definition of what a commercial vehicle was and trying to dial that in so that it could help the neighborhoods.
Before I bring up Officer Spinney or Chief Udon, I'll let my colleagues speak on the matter. Councilor Janus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Councilor Gitcher that, that definition that we read clearly doesn't match the vehicles that we are being told are an issue. And so I guess question probably for the solicitor's office is, where does that definition come from? Is that definition based on Mass General Law? Is that something that we decide as a council? I don't know how much flexibility we have to really determine what's allowed and what's not. Also, I feel like if we slide too far in one direction, we're going to start excluding people's personal vehicles. Pickup trucks are getting quite large these days. SUVs are quite large. And I don't know how we can determine, create something that allows people to park in front of their house, but, doesn't let 17 roofing vans from the same company park on the same street. And I think that might be something we need some guidance from the solicitor on.
Thank you. Councilor New.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think policy-wise, we do have policies. You read it, Mr. Chairman, 12,000 pound, 3-axle or more. If we don't feel that is enough, then too big, maybe one is smaller, we can always amend the policy. I understand that issue come about with regard to construction vehicle is because we have parking issue, and parking issue existed in every neighborhood, and particularly the South Lowell and Centerville. I'm sure in the Acre as well. I also recognize as well that, as Councilor Kachia mentioned, that there are some essential employee that employer give them car to take home, and that's probably the only car they have. So we have to be cognizant of that as well. It's a balancing act, really is. Those who have those kind of construction type of vehicle, if they do park responsibly, not in front of somebody's driveway or block somebody's driveway or in the corner, we obstruct, a view. I'm sure the discretion of the officer has those discretion in terms of whether or not to ticket or in lieu of ticketing, maybe give a warning. So those are the kind of things that, living in a city like Lowell, the fourth largest, we have to do it in a way that is, make it work for all. It's a difficult task, but it's possible that you can do it. So I'm kind of torn in all this, really. You just want to make sure that those who take the vehicle home do it in a responsible way. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm thinking of the people that called my home when they complained about this businessman, and we all need to work. There's no doubt about it. And if you happen to be in your own business, that's all well and good as well. But when you own a business and you have utility trucks, commercial vehicles, and you have like 5 of them, and you bring them, all your people come and bring them all home to your house, and you got 2 in the driveway, plus your family car, there's 3. Then you got 3 that are on the street. That's really unsightly and congested, and picture yourself living next door or across the street and you see 5 utility trucks every single day. It's a little bit frustrating, and I did report it. To this moment, nothing is really done, and it is frustrating, and it's hard to get out of your own driveway, and you can't park in front of your house because it leaves it even more narrow. So I can sympathize with that. I picture if that were me, although I live on a street that's pretty wide, so It wouldn't affect me as it does in Pawtucketville, such is the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Robinson, while you were out of the room, I did reread your motion from November of 2022, and just wanted to bring you up to up to date on if you were looking for something above and beyond what the current ordinance already is. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think this is a tricky situation. First, I want to be clear. More than ever, I think with today's rent prices and the cost of living, people need to work, and I applaud anybody that's getting up every morning and going to work. In no way is this motion intended to hurt or hinder anybody from doing so. Centerville, the Acre, Pawtucketville, sure, Lower Belvedere, a lot of these areas that are very back central, densely populated, very congested as is. You introduce Econoline vans and construction equipment, and it becomes impassable in certain areas. I think there's a few pieces here. So we have commercial in the sense that anything over, I think it's 26,001 pounds is classified as a commercial vehicle. Weight. That's not really what I don't think we're discussing here. I personally don't see a ton of those vehicles anywhere on public roads, which I'm glad about.
Commercial.
Commercial. CDL license required, commercial.
Commercial.
This isn't necessarily even just about construction vehicles, so to say, as much as it is work vans with commercial license plates. So I think one of the avenues we need to really take a look at is if it's a commercial plate, it has to be registered to a business or an address. Now, I'm not sure if these vehicles are being registered to residential addresses where they're parked or what. I know in the past I've had people that ran landscaping companies, lived in Centerville, and really had no yard. You could legit hand a bottle of water to your neighbor out of your living room window. That's how close the houses were. He had a successful landscape company. What he had to do, he found a gentleman in the area that charged him a reasonable fee to store his landscape equipment on his property because he could accommodate it. It worked out. Maybe that's something we need to look to with some of the lots and surplus property we have. Make it available to rent space out to these people if that's what they need. But I think we need to really start looking at where are the commercial plated vehicles, construction vehicles, that are being parked on public roadways in abundance, where are they registered to? I think once we can figure that, then we can look at if you're registering 3 or 4 construction vehicles with commercial plates to a residential address, then we need to look at, is that business being run out of that residential address? Is there a business certificate on file? People that are bringing home vehicles for work, that's one thing. I don't think that's something that's really all the time going on. And it's clear to see. If you see somebody just pick any of the companies out there with a van parked out front of their house, we know it's not registered to that residential address, and that's something that person is working. And I think that's more palatable. But I've seen in my neighborhood specifically, small startup businesses, which, I mean, it's indicative that they're successful, start with one van. And in the morning, 6 people are piling in it to go to work. A little while later, there's 2 vans. 4 people are piling in each van now. They're expanding. 3 vans. Now we're up to like 5, 6, 7 vans in some areas with F-450s, and now it's starting to grow and grow, which is great. I mean, business is good, and I encourage that. But I think we need to start looking at, can we find locations possibly to lease to these people that might need them to get these commercial plates off the road? And if not, I think maybe we reach out to members, residents in the public. Does anybody have lots that they're not really utilizing that would be open to maybe potentially leasing space to, or, I mean, whatever we can do. But I'm not looking to come down with a heavy hand and just start, hey, listen, get these vans out of there. But they have to understand, in some instances, when the fire department has to start knocking and going door to door to make a swing down the street when responding to a medical call because these work vans are making it impassable, then we have a real safety issue on our hands, so something has to be done. Thank you.
Counselor. Chief, Officer Spinney, could you come to the lectern? I just want to get back to the memo from Interim Superintendent Goldner a year and a half ago, actually. It was the last paragraph. The ordinance identifies commercial vehicles as those over 12,000 pounds, having 3 or more axles and over 24 feet in length. Is that still the definition, thank you, of a commercial vehicle and being towed or tagged at this time, or?
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, councilors, for having me. A wise man once said, surround yourself with smart people, which is why Officer Spinney is here. He is our commercial vehicle expert, and I'm actually going to allow him the opportunity to answer any of your questions. He has a nuanced knowledge on this subject matter that far surpasses anything I could answer. So, Officer Spinney, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, councilors. Sir, in regards to your question, the state of Massachusetts adopted the 49 CFR Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations under 540 CMR 1403A and B. The reason I bring that up is because the state of Mass definition of a commercial motor vehicle mimics the federal definition of a commercial motor vehicle. So there's some confusing numbers, but I'll try to explain it the best I can. A commercial motor vehicle is actually defined as any vehicle with a gross vehicle weight rating or combination weight rating exceeding 10,000 pounds that's used in the furtherance of commerce. So again, sir, the state adopted that number. So I don't know where the 12,000 pound number came from in our ordinance. And to clarify the topic that you brought up, Councilor Robinson, with the 26,000 pound, that is where CDL regulations come into. Anything that exceeds 26,000 pound requires a CDL driver's license. So in summation, the definition of a commercial motor vehicle is anything 10,000 pounds or over that's used for business purposes.
Excuse me, are the fines still being put in place? There's a $750 fine, or is that not
Currently,
being
sir,
enforced?
Currently, sir, on our current parking citation books, the CMV fine is $75.
$75?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Councilor Robinson, go ahead.
Thank you. Now, anything over 10,000 pounds is required to get a commercial plate? Is that how it works?
No, sir. Any vehicle in the state of Massachusetts that's used for business purposes that bears company lettering or has business appurtenances, such as ladder racks or tools of the trade affixed to the vehicle, require commercial plates. So I'll give you an example. Bain Pest Control. I don't know if you've seen them around, but they actually have sedans that they use as company vehicles. Because they have company lettering on the doors, they require commercial tags.
Okay.
So, you know, a commercial vehicle could be anything from a small sedan to a tractor trailer. Where the 10,000 pound mark comes in, that's where federal motor carrier safety regulations apply,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Thank you very much for that clarification.
Sir.
So I guess I'd like to go back to Councilor Gitcher's point, and I'll let him speak on it. It seems like we have to tighten it up a little bit here, because obviously our streets aren't like it was in November of 2022. We're actually getting tighter. But is there anything that we can do can the police do, so to make it, like Councilor Mercia just brought up, she has commercial vehicles all over her neighborhood, and it's not conducive to a quiet living over there. So I guess I'm asking you for your response to that.
My response, sir, would be that under Superintendent Hunod in his administration, we have upped the number of commercial vehicle citations that we issue. It's one of the biggest complaints that we get in the traffic division. It's a problem that we deal with every single day. Our enforcement options are, short of the vehicle being unregistered or revoked for insurance, or, blocking a driveway or something of that nature, all we can do is issue that $75 parking ticket and a 72-hour removal notice at this time.
Do we find that a lot of these vehicles are parked on sidewalks?
From time to time, yes, sir.
Okay. Counselor Getchia.
You know, we're living in Fantasy Island. You know, when it comes down to it, Revere, the city of Revere did this in 2017. And they said in order to park a commercial vehicle overnight in a public way within the city of Revere, you must apply for a commercial vehicle parking permit. So, and then it says you need a valid business certificate, must be on file with the city clerk's office. The vehicle must be registered in the city of Revere. And you can only park it on the street that it's registered to. So, I mean, when we start looking at the fine is, and they said vehicle shall be under 10,000 pounds gross manufactured vehicle weight. So when they load up all of these ladders and everything, they're well over. And when you go over, shouldn't they be DOT inspected and have the numbers on the side of the vehicles also?
Counselor, I think it's important to bring up regarding the vans. A lot of vans and up to F-350 pickup trucks are specifically designed to be under a manufacturer's weight rating of 10,000 pounds in order to keep them out of federal motor carrier safety regulations. Even with the ladders and the equipment that is on those vans, they do not exceed a curb weight or a registered weight or a factory weight rating of 10,000 pounds or more, sir.
Could they be overloaded?
They could be, sir, but they're not subject to federal motor carrier safety regulations. So if it was a tractor trailer or something like that, I can administratively stop them and weigh them on the roadside. Where those vehicles fall under that 10,000 pound manufacturer's weight rating, I do not have that authority, sir.
So just for clarification, so if I bought a van, I could overload it to 15,000 pounds and there's nothing an officer could do about it?
We cannot weigh them roadside, sir.
Wow. The cost of the permit in Revere is $420 just to get the permit, and that's to be on the street. I truly would agree with, you know, the officer didn't say this, but this is my words, is that the fine's not steep enough, and it needs to have bite to it to say, we don't need this, you know, bring it back to where it comes from. There's a quality of life issue. I get the phone calls. I'm sure everyone in here gets those phone calls repetitively, like we had it at Tyler Park for a period of time. And, you know, at some point we have to start reviewing other communities' ordinances that they have in place if you want the same quality of life all the way through. We have no problem with comparing other communities. We want to create positions, or we want to say we're doing this right or we're doing that right, but we want to create quality of life. We kind of mimic what we feel is right, but we don't want to take that stance to say this. And I do think that, you know, if it's our homes, we would not be happy that this is going on. I don't want to take away from someone's right to work. Park the vehicle like we all had to. I know they didn't let me take home a city garbage truck to my house when I was a kid driving it. I would have liked that. Parked it in front of my house. It would have been smelly for everybody. It would have been nice. You know, and that's the point is that I didn't have any money either, and I had to figure out a way to get to work. I was a kid that just graduated from high school. I needed a job. You know, at some point there's a quality of life issue that we have to address. And if people don't like it, hey, I'm sorry, vote for someone else. But I'm voting for your neighborhood. I'm trying to give you a quality of life that we all expect. You want to be able to look out your window and actually see the nice tree, not see vans in the side of a white van parked in front of your house, and you're like, yeah, this makes for great living. So, Mr. Chairman, I think we have to look at bringing it down to the 10,000, as the officer stated, and is in the city of Revere's, as we talked about many of times. We should increase the fine. If they're giving out many of them, it's obvious that, you know, people are like, hey, don't worry about that. I would suggest doubling the fine right off the bat. I don't think that that's unfair. You know, we have to send our resources out there, and that's what's bothersome. We're down 28 offices, I believe. And to have to send them to these houses over and over and over again, there's a cost to the taxpayer. There's a service cost to people. And we have to include that in everything we do. And it's only fair that we start charging people what it costs us to send our services there over and over again. That's all. Thank you.
Councilor Janess, then Councilor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll agree. You know, I hear this at most of the neighborhood meetings I go to, whether it's Back Central, whether it's Centerville, whether it's Pawtucketville. We talked about it last night in Pawtucketville. This is clearly something that is prevalent across the city. I agree that we should change that 12,000 to 10,000 so that it matches. So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we refer this to the law department to update the 12,000 to 10,000, as well as to take a look around at what other communities are doing and come back with a report and recommendation on how we should move forward.
So motion by Commissioner Janess. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Noon. Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. Thank you for that motion to cut it down to 10K. And I agree with Councilor Getchia. I think I'd like to put in the form of a motion, if that's okay. I'd like to get a report back on what are the fines that other communities our size.
So I think what we're going to do is, Councilor Janess's motion is to exactly do that. Is send it to
Fines
the law- send it to
included?
the law department, and cross the board and bring us back a report on exactly, from make it to 10,000, 12,000 now to 10,000, maybe upping the fines and just giving us maybe a tighter.
So those two things, and then I think another key piece is going to be, let's look at the permitting process. I think that's going to be a huge piece, and that's going to involve, I think, the parking department. And I think inspectional service would probably have a piece of that too, because again, if you're going to permit these vehicles to park them at a residential address, I think the business certificate, so I think that needs to be included in the motion, is the potential permitting process, the weight or restriction as was made in the motion, and then as well as the fines.
Okay.
Thank
So we had a first, we had a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone further? Councilor Getchia.
Chairman Dakota, I just want to add that I do think that we need to start looking at where these people are registering their vehicles and how they're being stayed overnight in areas also to this. It doesn't even have to be commercial, but if you have a van that has 50 ladders on top and you're registered in, say, Chelmsford or somewhere else in the state, it's a quality of life for people within. It should be registered in the city of Lowell to have overnight parking. And that's what Revere did. That's what people are saying is, look, in order to be parked at a residence for a certain period of time, it should be registered within that community so we get the excise tax and not somewhere else. Thank you.
Any further comments? Motion by Councilor Janess to adjourn, second by Commissioner Noon. No.
Steve wanted to talk on something.
On this?
Mr. Malagodi, you had something you want to address the subcommittee on? If it's okay with the chair?
Yes, fine.
Thank you very much. I did actually write to the clerk's office early this morning requesting permission to speak, so I hope it's okay.
Sure, hold on one second. Chief?
You don't need to request permission to speak at a subcommittee.
Chief, Officer Spinney, you're all set. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Go ahead, sir.
So if it's okay, thank you very much, councilors. I said earlier that I wanted to speak on a different matter, but actually it dovetails right into what you've been talking about. My name is Steve Malagodi. I live at 200 Market Street, number 216 in Lowell, the city of bright beginnings. Copyright. It was this city that was designed and destined to become the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in the mid-19th century. Throughout the 20th century, it became and remains to this day a vibrant gateway city, providing bright new beginnings to thousands of migrant and refugee families and also to some people like me. And yet, it is undeniable that when considering the public infrastructure needed for the 21st century, there's a lot that's lacking in Lowell. One thing that's lacking is a public transit system that people actually want to use. It's a system that we have now that, despite the fact that we're already a quarter of the way through the 21st century, it's a system that seems trapped in 1960 and utterly unresponsive to the seismic changes that are happening all around us. After decades of underfunding, last year, 2023, we saw a $54 million increase in funding from the state legislature, an increase that was accomplished after years of advocacy and lobbying for by regional transit advocates such as myself and others across the state. That extra $54 million was divided up by the 15 regional RTAs amongst themselves through an unseen process that leaves us with no idea of how much was actually allotted to the LRTA. If you just take $54 million and divide it by 15, you get about 3.6 million per region. But that's not how it was done, so we don't have any idea really what portion of that state funding, extra state funding, the LRTA got. Furthermore, we do know that the LRTA got a $6.8 million grant from the federal IRA program, the Inflation Reduction Act program, specifically for fleet electrification. Together, that's roughly $10 million in additional funds. It could be more, it could be less, we don't know because we don't know how much they got from the state. What we also don't know is where it went and what the future plans for decarbonization and electrification are for the LRTA. It's not like we haven't been asking. My own emails to Director Bradley on behalf of 350 Mass of Greater Lowell have gone unanswered. Okay, I get it. But city council motions? I believe there have been 2 motions now that have requested the city manager to ask the LRTA for a report on this funding, which have also been, so far, ignored. At the very minimum, we must have some degree of transparency from the LRTA about the disposition of these funds and for their vision of the future of public transit in Lowell. Considering what everyone agrees are going to be major changes to the downtown Acre neighborhoods and the Hamilton Canal District, recently unveiled by the recently unveiled Link project, the issues of social mobility, along with housing, are paramount. Unless we, as citizens and this council, are willing to have all decisions about the future of housing and transportation be made by others behind closed doors, then the first thing that needs to happen is for somebody to answer the basic questions. What is happening with our money, and what are the plans for our future? If I were a state legislator, that's what I'd want to know before there are any more increases, as are currently being considered. What I would ask of the subcommittee and the larger council is simply this. Please have the LRTA respond in detail to the motions already passed by the city council without further delay. We just spent a lot of time talking about parking and the impassability of streets, some streets here in Lowell and streets and neighborhoods here in Lowell. The solution is to get as many cars off the road as we can. We will never do it all, but as many as we can. That requires a workable public transit system that people can actually use. So please, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? All right, the motion was to adjourn by Councilor Janess, seconded by Commissioner Noon. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.